Picture a bright, sun-drenched horizon, right? A colossal steel leviathan is just cutting through the sparkling blue ocean, carrying enough energy to power an entire city. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are shining a cinematic spotlight on the high-stakes, fast-paced, and honestly, incredibly complex world of global shipping. I mean, from the shore, it might just look like big ships on the water, but behind the scenes, it's this brilliant, high-octane operation governed by incredibly strict rules and massive financial gambles.
So the big question is this: how do millions of tons of oil actually move seamlessly across the globe every single day? You kind of have to think of every single voyage not just as a trip, but as a critical mission in the theater of global commerce. These aren't just boats wandering from port to port. We're talking about multi-million-dollar operations executing perfectly timed, highly regulated maneuvers just to keep the world running.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, Decoding Tanker Fixtures, the daily market of global oil. To truly understand these missions, we have to look at the command center. Imagine a glowing, high-tech dashboard in a spy movie. Every day, there's this intense stream of raw data broadcasted across shipping dailies and broker reports. They detail the exact movements, cargo, and costs of these massive vessels. It's wild because these single lines of text distill massively complex operations into raw, actionable intelligence. Take a ship like the Ocean Trader, for example. It's loading 27,500 tons of clean petroleum in the Persian Gulf, heading for India at a rate of WS 205. Or the World Harmony, a total giant moving 245,000 tons of dirty petroleum from Kuwait to the Philippines. At a single glance, industry insiders know exactly who is moving what, where they're going, and exactly how much it costs.
You probably caught that WS abbreviation in those reports. Let's do a rapid-fire breakdown of what that actually means. World Scale, or WS, is the standard freight rate system the industry uses to negotiate these massive voyage costs. Instead of haggling over flat dollar amounts for every single route, the industry uses this brilliant standardized scale. It's a real game changer because it keeps negotiations lightning fast and universally understood no matter what ocean you're crossing. But here is where the tension really kicks in. Every single fixture comes with a lake hand. This is the specific, unforgiving window of days when a vessel must arrive and be completely ready for loading. Think of it as a ticking clock on a cinematic time bomb. If a ship misses this strict window, say because of a freak storm, a port delay, or a mechanical failure, the charterer has the power to cancel the contract entirely. Just like that, the whole operation is at risk, and millions of dollars can literally vanish in an instant.
Section 2. The Shelltime 4 Blueprint, the ultimate operational rulebook.
Now, to prevent complete chaos, these time charters need a master script. And please don't think of this as some boring, dusty legal document. This is the gold standard rulebook that meticulously choreographs the relationship between the people who own the ships and the oil majors who rent them. It's a strict balance of power. The blueprint neatly divides the world. The ship owner acts as the provider. They pay for the capital, the insurance, and the crew. They deliver a fully functioning, manned vessel. On the flip side, the charterer acts as the director of the mission. They pay for the bunkers, which is the fuel, the port expenses, and the trading costs. It's a perfect, incredibly high-stakes partnership. But, even in the most perfect partnership, there's always room for a little high-stakes speculation. Enter Clause 15, which I like to call the bunker gamble. When a charter ends, the charterer has to pay for the fuel remaining on board at current market prices. But here's the catch. The contract often doesn't specify maximum or minimum quantities. So clever charterers might actually load up on cheap fuel right before redelivering the ship if they know market prices at that final port are sky high and they just pocket the difference. It's a fascinating game of global market chess.
Section 3. Maintaining the vessel, the engine of the operation. Because let's be real, all those financial agreements mean absolutely nothing if the ship itself can't survive the crushing physical demands of the open sea. The language used in these contracts is almost poetic. The vessel must be tight, staunch, and strong. Owners are bound by strict international standards for their crew, and they have to exercise absolute due diligence to keep the ship seaworthy at all times. And if they fail, the penalties are severe. Charterers can reduce their payments or even terminate the contract entirely. The ship literally has to be battle-ready at all times.
And charterers, well, they have strict rules to follow too, specifically when ordering the ship to a safe port. Now, a safe port isn't just about having deep enough water. It means a ship can reach it, use it, and return without exposure to unavoidable danger. Back in 1970, there was this famous case involving a ship called the Timma. Charterers ordered the vessel to Hamburg. But the weather turned brutally cold, and the Elbe River filled with ice, which actually damaged the ship. The final ruling? The port was deemed unsafe, and the charterers were held entirely responsible for the breach.
Section 4. The flow of money, keeping the operation liquid.
Let's follow the lifeblood of this entire operation. Time charters run on a relentless, unforgiving schedule of monthly hire payments to keep the massive gears turning. It's fascinating how literal the phrase "time is money" becomes in global shipping. Shelltime 4 includes an off-hire clause with a very tight threshold, usually just 3 to 6 hours. If a vessel breaks down or loses time for less than that threshold, the charterer still has to pay. But the absolute second that clock crosses the 6-hour mark, boom, that massive financial burden instantly shifts back onto the owner. Every single minute is accounted for.
So what happens if the charterer just stops paying? Well, Clause 9 brings out the big guns. If a hire payment is missed, the owner can issue a notice. The charterer then enters this highly dramatic 7-day grace period to scrape the funds together. If the money doesn't arrive in time, the owner has the extreme nuclear power to completely withdraw the vessel, stopping the charterer's operation dead in its tracks.
Which brings us to Section 5, the final voyage dispute, a ticking clock thriller. Let's look at a real-world showdown from 1992 that played out exactly like a ticking clock thriller. It all centered around Clause 19 and a vessel's final voyage before being returned. Walk through this escalating timeline with me. In mid-January, the charterer gave notice to redeliver the ship by early March. Based on that exact date, the owner went out and secured the ship's next job. But then, plot twist, the charterer suddenly announced they wanted to squeeze in one last long voyage that would push the redelivery past the absolute deadline of March 8th. The owner flat out refused to do it. They couldn't risk losing their next contract. So the charterer was forced to take a shorter, way less lucrative route, eventually redelivering the ship on March 6th.
Because the owner refused that longer final voyage, the charterer was absolutely furious. They calculated exactly how much profit they lost by taking the shorter route, and they sued the owner for a massive sum, $64,835.19 to be exact. They basically claimed the owner had absolutely no right to refuse their final orders. But the panel's judgment here was brilliant. They ruled in favor of the owner, and their reasoning hit the nail on the head. They stated, Clause 19 is not to legitimize an illegitimate last voyage, but to recover what happens due to an unforeseen delay once a last voyage has begun. Essentially, because the charterer knew the proposed voyage would mathematically exceed the March 8th deadline before it even started, it was illegitimate from day one. The owner was completely, 100% justified in refusing it.
And just to add a little salt to the wound in this traumatic dispute, the charterer didn't just lose their $64,000 claim. Nope, the panel ordered them to pay $10,000 to cover the ship owner's attorney fees too. That, my friends, is the very real, very expensive cost of miscalculating the rules of Shelltime 4.
So, next time you're standing on a beach, looking out at a bright, sunlit horizon, and you spot a massive tanker gliding silently in the distance, ask yourself, whose mission is it really on? What kind of high-stakes gambles are playing out on board right at that moment, and exactly what does their Shelltime 4 blueprint say? The hidden mechanics of global shipping are always turning, keeping our fast-paced world in motion. Thanks for joining me on today's Explainer, and keep asking the big questions.